Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, for tonight I would like to introduce Elam Hurd. He's from P.S.A.T.S. and he wants to give us a little demonstration about home rule. Elam?
Thank you. Good evening. I want to talk about home rule. I'm not here to promote it or tell you to stay as a township of the second class. I will just get into what the benefits are and are not with home rule. I will give you some pros and cons. I will also say, and I make this clear, because some people say since I'm from P.S.A.T.S, and if the township would go home rule, they can't be a member, so I will want to push that they stay township of the second class under the township code. That's the farthest thing from truth. You can be a home rule township and still be a member of the association, so it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. If you have questions during the presentation, please ask. It makes it easier than waiting until the end of the presentation to try to answer your questions. If I can't answer them, I'll tell you I can't answer them. I don't know everything. I'm not, quote unquote, the expert that knows everything. I do know, and I've taught home rule, these classes, numerous times within the last year. So, and one other thing. This is basically, I have it set up as questions that were asked, that have been asked of us over the years about home rule. So that's why it's put up that way. You know, what does it mean for a township to become home rule? Home rule charter and optional plan law was passed back in 1972. It authorizes a municipality and or a county that they can change the form of government, and it's through a referendum process. The governing body has the ability to put the question on the ballot, but mostly it's the initiative is by the people, and it has to be voted on by the people. The governing body cannot change the form on their own. It is to transfer the authority of your municipal affairs. Changing to a home rule does not change basically the overall picture of what local governments can do within their municipality. Comparison is right now, Highland Township operates under the second-class township code. The code is about 150, 160 pages, and it gives the guidance of how the township operates. It also, the township has to follow the state laws that are passed that affect everyone, whether it's in a township, a city, a borough, the vehicle code, the crimes code, municipalities planning code. What does it mean for you to become home rule? Home Rule Act requires municipalities to continue to follow all uniform state laws. Sunshine Act, Right to Know law, as I said, vehicle code, municipalities code, planning code, municipalities planning code, excuse me, crimes code, sewage and facilities act, stormwater. You have to follow them. If anybody tells you that going home rule, it's your constitution, you can do whatever you want, it's a bunch of bull. You can do certain things about changing how the township operates. It does not change the premise that you're still a creature of the state. We will get back to that a little bit later in the presentation.
Question.
Sir, yes.
What's ACRE?
Oh, acre, excuse me. Right now I forget what it actually stands for. It's agricultural something. Basically, a law was passed less than 10 years ago, around that time, that says that farmers have the ability to farm under and following the guise of the Right to Farm Act and the Nutrient Management Act. If they do it within that, theoretically a municipality cannot pass an ordinance to supersede that. If the municipality does, the farmer can appeal it to the Attorney General, and he would make the decision of whether the ordinance is valid or not. But I forget what acres, the words actually are. Procedure required, question of home rule is placed on the ballot. The home rule law, the actual law establishes what has to be done to change government to a home rule charter. Actually, the law is set up two ways. You can have a home rule charter or an optional plan. Literally, I was asked to talk about the home rule charter. I will not get into the optional plan. From what I understand, the question on your ballot is to go to home rule, not to talk about optional plan. Optional plan really just even narrows it down to say that you will follow the municipal codes, that you're under, but you change the certain things with the governing body. Question must be put on the ballot for the registered electors, the voters, to vote on.
I do got a question, and you specified that, but if they went home rule, they could actually revert back to that if they were writing up their charter, correct?
You mean they could stay as a second class?
Yeah, they could, or similar to that, they could write that up that way if they wanted.
Couple things. When the study is done, what the question, not knowing how the question is actually worded on the ballot, but basically what it's going to do is ask the study commissioners, home rule study law commissioners that you will also vote for, to look at home rule and the second class township code. The end result is they can come back and say, one, we think you should stay as second class township under the code. Two, they could say, we think you should go to a home rule, and they will then spell out what should be in the home rule charter that you would then, that they would then prepare to be voted on down the road, and we will get more into that. So,
But we still have to follow all uniform state laws. That's not what we were told last week by Selva.
no, yes, you still have to, doesn't matter, you cannot put in there, I'll use the easiest one.
Excuse me, what was the comment, Bob?
I said, so we still have to follow all uniform state laws. Because Chad Nicholson told us last week that we don't necessarily, that going home rule, we'd have the same power as state laws.
No, and we'll get into that more.
He didn't say that.
We
He did
said
not say
statute.
that.
Well, I don't know, I'm just answering the questions, I will get to that part a little bit. Electors, when you vote for the study commission, you also have commissioners people run to be on that study commission. You will vote for the study commission, and you will vote for commissioners. If you vote, even if you don't want the study commission to be done, and you're going to vote no, you still will vote for the commissioners. So that's two different things to keep in mind. Two questions. Basically, they're tied together, but they're separate. Do you want a home rule study commission? Yes or no? Here are the commissioners. Whatever the names are, you vote for the number that you're supposed to. So, question I get a lot of times, well, I don't want this. Why do I vote for the commissioners? Because you may lose, and you'll still have commissioners, so you vote for them. Bam.
Can you put in write-ins? Write-ins. Like if you don't want to choose those 7, can you write in?
I'm not sure of that. You'd have to look at the election code, which, again, one of the other statewide is the election code. You can't change the election code. So that would be a better question to ask your county election board.
I'm pretty sure you can. I did that.
That's fine. I'm not sure of that. I don't get into that much detail. Procedure, when the question is placed on the ballot. If the commission is approved, you're saying yes, you want to have the home rule study, the commission must follow the procedures in the law. Again, it spells out exactly in the law what has to take place. You review, as the question was asked, the existing form of government. In this case, it's a township of second class under the township code. You recommend whether the township should adopt the charter or remain under the code, and you make a report detailing your recommendations. The commission decides to recommend home rule. the charter is drafted and presented to the voters for approval. So again, even though you're going to vote in a couple of weeks on the study, if that is approved, later on, if they come up with a charter, you're going to vote on it again. So just voting on the study doesn't mean that you will have a home rule charter. If you approve the charter, the new government will take effect under the time frames of the Home Rule Act and the transition provisions in that charter. So again, the Act spells out about transferring, going from what you are today into the Home Rule Charter. Voters decide if a study commission should study, determine whether the recommendations to change the current system of government. It's a yes or no question. That's basically, that isn't the wording that it's there, but the end result is, should we have a study commission, yes or no? Question, will restrict the commission to reviewing the existing government, home rule, or in some cases, the optional plan charter. You have, as I just said a little while ago, you have to elect the study commissioners. Even if you vote no, question is not approved, the individuals will not be elected. The sections there, 2911 and 2912, they're the sections that are actually in the home rule law for that decision. Okay, if it's approved, you go to the polling places, you vote for it, it's approved that you're going to have a study. The commission is formed. Commissioners must take an oath of office. Basically what it says is, same as the elected official does, that you're going to uphold your position, you're going to uphold the constitutions of federal government and state government. Has to be done in the first meeting within 15 days of when your county election bureau, county election board certifies that the vote for the study commission was approved. The commission will organize, determine when and where it will meet, adopt rules, conduct business, again, within the confines of the law. And you must advertise the meetings. They're open meetings under the Sunshine Law. Again, section 2915 and 16 says the study commission will meet in public. They cannot meet behind closed doors. Township and second class follow the code, as I said earlier, which outlines procedures how the township is required to operate. Does such a document exist for home rule municipalities? Your charter becomes the second class township code book. That's the equivalent. So your charter is not your constitution, it's equivalent to the second class township code. Commission will write the charter, submit it to the voters, as I said. Voters choose whether to adopt or reject the proposed charter. If you go to the study commission, they recommend the charter, it gets on the ballot, the vote comes and goes against the charter, what they proposed, then you stay where you are today, under the second class township code. The charter, also, when you're doing the charter can be basically totally new, or it could take actually provisions right out of the second class township code and incorporate them into how your charter is set up. Differences between the two, really it's the organization of your government. The supervisors, in most cases what happens, the change in term. Right now, the second class township code, you can have 3 supervisors or 5 supervisors. It's a decision that's made locally. Under the home rule charter, you got 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, if you want to get that high. There are some home rule municipalities in the state that do have up to 11. Most times they're called council people. You can have a situation where you have a board like you have here now, or you could have like a council with quote unquote a strong mayor form of government. Optional provisions for additional citizen participation through referendum initiative. Again, we are not a initiative and referendum state, as California is. California, if you ever really follow the news, almost every election they have referendums on their ballots. We don't have that. We have certain things that do go on the ballot. Retention of judges, which come up semi-frequently. There was to be a question on the ballot this time, and it's being debated right now about extending the age limit for judges from 70 to 75. There's questions on the ballot whether you want to be a dry community or a wet community. Dry and wet, not like tonight out there, but whether you have alcohol within the township or not. There are certain things. Referendum initiative going from 3 supervisors to 5 supervisors. You just can't have a referendum in this state for just anything and everything as some other states do. Under the home rule, you can write more into it than what we have. You do spell out the procedural requirements for operating the government, and it's whether it's going to be a representative versus a participatory. We have a representative form of government in Pennsylvania in most cases, whether it's the township, borough, the local governments, or it's a state. You vote somebody in, they represent you. New England states have what is known as a participatory government. They have their town meetings, in which case there is give and take during the whole meeting, and in some of them they actually have the people vote on the decisions. Advantages, depends on how the charter is written. That's the big issue right there. Major difference, the way the government operates, size of the government, elected officers, their duties. What laws must the home rule municipalities follow? As I said earlier, and it's not limited to that list there, but you have to follow those laws. You cannot change them. The law is very specific. Whether you're in a city, a borough, a township, or the town of Bloomsburg, which is the only town actually in Pennsylvania, it's no different. And whether you're under a code, the municipal code, or home rule, those laws still apply. Is there a difference between townships and home rule municipalities with authority of the federal government or state government? No and no. We are creatures of the state, and we'll get into it. It's known as Dillon's rule. So the federal government and state government are still superior to local government. Matter of fact, the way Pennsylvania's Constitution is written, the only 2 groups that are actually in the Constitution are counties and school districts. The legislature cannot do away with that. They'd have to amend the Constitution. Cities, boroughs, townships, even the city of Philadelphia, theoretically could be done away with if the legislature would do so, because they're not spelled out. Excuse me. We must comply, no matter what, with both constitutions. Dillon's rule provides that municipalities are creatures of the state and can only take actions that the state explicitly or implicitly applies. Dillon was an Iowa Supreme Court justice who argued in front of, before or after he was a Supreme Court justice, before the U.S. Supreme Court, and argued at that time that municipalities are creatures of the state. They are created by the state. They can be destroyed by the state. It's basically the old theory of England, where the king is supreme and everybody else under him is responsible to the king. That's what Dillon's rule. That is a federal court case that was done in the 1800s, and it's still there.
So, excuse me, sir,
Yes.
what you're saying, that means nothing can change?
Nothing from what standpoint you mean?
From state law or federal law? Nothing's open for arbitration, absolutely nothing.
Excuse me.
If Dillon did it, we can do it.
Well, you have to argue in front of two ways you can change. One is you'd have to either legislatively change something or two, argue it in the courts and win it that way.
So we can't
Okay,
do-
so our ordinance for the injection well, you're saying we have no chance. That's what that said.
I am not a lawyer. I'll put that out there. My opinion is if it is allowed and recognized by the federal government or the state government as a legal activity, you would have, in my opinion, a very hard time of winning that case. Does that say you would not win it? I can't tell you yes or no. I would just say that if the state recognizes it as a legal activity or the federal government, it would be hard. Now, two things you could do. One is challenge it in court, and if the courts
That's
agree with
what
your
we're
side,
doing.
right, and if the courts agree with you, it can be changed, or change a law. Somebody else had it. Yes, ma'am.
So for home rule, we're actually lifted off from underneath the Dillon's rule.
No. You are still a creature of the state. Only thing that home rule does is give you certain things that you can do that you can't do under the code. It does not take you out of uniform laws.
You're saying,
Okay, he had his hand up first, ma'am.
you're saying that, we have to go by the Constitution.
Correct.
So then, under our Constitution, we're guaranteed clean water, clean air. And a lot of us don't get that.
I would
So
contend
how did the state get that?
that is a decision that was made by the courts, and there was a court case with the Robinson court case that said that you're to follow the Constitution and take in Article, I think it's 27,
Yeah.
or Section 27, that deals with the water. Again, if it's recognized there, the only recourse you don't have the recourse as a municipality to change that. It's challenged. The gentleman, I think the gentleman back there said you're already in court over that.
If we get enough home rule charters, municipalities, townships, whatever, maybe we can change that.
I will contend, again, and I'm not here to say yes or no to home rule or not, but I will contend it won't matter if you get all the townships or that to go home rule or all the municipalities to go home rule or not. Again, it will be the decision of the judges to say whether you're exceeding the authority that you are given under the Home Rule Charter Act and what's in the Constitution.
We have a lot of people wanting independence over.
I can't,
Yeah, no, but he can't. He can't.
He
can't say that.
So you don't think that's a civil rights issue?
I told you, I'm not an attorney, I cannot answer
I'm
that
asking
question.
you what you think.
I don't know, I never thought of it from a civil rights issue. It's,
Think of it from our issue.
excuse me?
Think of it from our issue.
Again, I was not asked to come here to talk about your issue per se. I was asked to come and to explain home rule and the code. What my opinion is, as I say to a lot of people, my opinion in 50 cents will buy you a Coke in my office. My office. I can't tell you, sir. Anything, if I would even give you my opinion on that, somebody could say, well, Mr. Herb said X, Y, Z. The press is here, they put that in there. Somebody's going to say, well, where did he come up? I'm not here to practice law, I'm here to talk about this.
But basically, like under the home rule charter, it seems like we're very concerned about the injection wells going on. This way, at least, if we did go home rule, the people in the township would have a say whether they want to fight this. Whether they want this to take precedence, whether somebody else would say we're going to rescind the ordinance. If we drew this up and had this, that the township, the mass amount of people would vote on us wanting to keep the ordinance in place.
The people have a
The
voice.
people would have the voice.
That you actually right now, if you convince the supervisors to fight it, or you fight it on your own, one or the other, you can do it. We will get into, there are cases out there, both in Pennsylvania and outside of Pennsylvania, where the judge has awarded damages to the other side. You take that into consideration too. The issue, again, whether you want to challenge the injection wells or anything else, that should be looked at somewhat separate than just going home rule. That's an issue that you can challenge as a township, a borough, city, even the county could challenge that, or individuals who potentially would be hurt by it.
But I'm just saying, as far as drafting an ordinance, it wouldn't be left up on the helm of 3 people to enforce the ordinance. That way, if we did draft a ordinance and a mass amount of people wanted to do this, it would be an ordinance. I'm not saying it's gonna be legal in the courts or anything else, but that way it'd be a showing for what the majority of the people in Highland Township want to do.
It wouldn't be, in the case of this, it wouldn't be an ordinance. What we're talking about is whether you put it actually in your charter. Yeah, an ordinance would, municipality, the governing body still would have the ability to pass ordinances. Again, in the charter, you could write out that ordinances have to be voted on by the people, or you could still give the governing body that. So what you're talking about here, most likely is the commission would actually have a section in the charter talking about the injection wells. And that's different than the ordinance.
I didn't mean to state it.
No, but I just want to make sure everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, but that would be, if that is a concern, and a major concern for Highland Township, that way it would be something that we could put on a ballot, so we're all in it together. Whether it be a yes or no answer, I mean, that way everybody's in and they can weigh in on their opinion of what they want to do.
That's very true.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Pennsylvania Supreme Court case of Denbrough versus Borough of Leetsdale. This was 99. It is fundamental that municipal corporations are creatures of the state, that the authority of the legislature over the powers is supreme. Municipal corporations have no inherent powers and may do only those things which the legislature has expressly or necessarily necessary implications placed within their power to do. So this case reinforced the Dillon's rule that we were talking about, which was a federal case. This is PA Supreme Court, which then said you are subservient to the state.
And that's also saying that we're subservient to the corporations, correct?
No, not necessarily.
That's what it said to me.
Yeah.
If you read that again, that's what it said to me.
Municipal corporations. Highland Township is a municipal corporation.
Okay.
That doesn't talk about any other type of private corporation.
But Dillon's law does talk about corporations.
That Dillon's rule, when it was written, talked about municipal corporations. In Pennsylvania, as well as other states, municipalities are incorporated. They were established, created, whatever, at a certain time. Literally, when Pennsylvania was started, there were townships and 3 counties. And they were the originals. They started. After that, as people moved west, municipalities were incorporated. City of Philadelphia started out actually as part of the township. It was then incorporated as a borough and finally incorporated as a city. So, corporation there is not a private entity. It is the public entity that you have here, Highland Township.
But can I help you out here? Well, I think he's talking about this, I think that was the railroads thing that was going on with Dillon's. I think was now how that came about, the argument came. That was a corporation that was actually fighting somebody that
Yeah,
was fighting a municipality.
Right, there was actually at the same time, there was 2 arguments going on. Judge Dillon and there was another attorney, and I don't know what his name was, in front of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court took Judge Dillon's rule saying that the municipality could not establish laws that superseded the state and or the federal government. But yes, there was a business that was involved in the issue of the argument at the time. Home rule municipalities must follow the uniform state statutes. That's in section 2962 of the Act. They may exercise any powers and perform the functions permitted under the Constitution and by the acts of the General Assembly or the Home Rule Charter, and that's 2961. Election rules different? No. You still follow the same state election laws. So you cannot change those either. So, you know, you still have the primary election, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, and you have the general election. You still have municipal elections in one cycle and statewide elections in the other cycle. So this cycle that's coming up is the general elections